How can you support a teammate who is going through a tough time on ice or off the ice?
I think you just need to be there. You need to be like a shoulder for them to lean on. And if it's off the ice, you need to be able to just discuss things that's not related to hockey. And they might be struggling with something in their personal life they might not be willing to discuss with you, and that's okay. You can discuss the weather outside. You can discuss really anything, but I mean, as long as you're there and they know that you're there, you don't want to leave them out to dry, because just having the feeling of being alone is kind of the worst feeling. So just having a teammate know that you're there is really the best feeling. When you realize that this person might be having a tough time lately, whether in practice, in hockey, in their personal life, just being able to say, hey, good job with this, or hey, you want to go get a cup of coffee, it might really turn their day around. It might really make their week.
Yeah. I think when you're younger and ambitious, you feel as though you need to be everybody's person. You know, for me, that's how I felt, especially being in leadership roles. I felt as though, as a captain, I had to not fix, not solve, but kind of fix, solve everything for everyone. You know, I see this person struggling, and I need to do this, 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 and this. And I think as I get older and experience it more, I realize that we're going to have different relationships with every one of our teammates. And so how I show up for you is going to be different than how I show up for you. But then also just understanding that, if it's someone that you're not super, super close with and it's a teammate and you see they're struggling and, you've kind of tried to break the ice and let them know that you're here, then, maybe you go to a close friend of theirs and say, hey, AJ, I don't know if you've noticed, but I feel like I've noticed Blitzy's been struggling a bit. Have you been keeping an eye on it? Yeah. And I think those little things help. And then I think the biggest thing is that sometimes, even if they're your best friends, some things are out of your hands and out of your control. And sometimes you have to get them the support, help them, push them, get the support that they need beyond you, talking to coaches, whatever it might be.
When you were speaking, I kind of thought of sometimes the person that is struggling, they don't really recognize it. And it's really hard if it's the close person to you, because then you're kind of like, oh, but what do I do? I can't. And I actually had an experience, and this was in high school, where a close friend of mine was having some eating disorder problem, and I was in the close circle of people that knew about it. She told me that this is what she's going through, and I felt really helpless, because yeah, you can talk about it, but I can't fix it. I can't do anything about it. So then I was like, well, I don't know what to do, and I felt really I don't want to invade her privacy, but then I just felt like it was getting really, really bad. So I spoke to adult, and I was like, okay, I think that she needs help. And so I told my teacher about this, and then they talked to her parents and solved it. And then she had to go to hospital and get help. I came to visit her, and I felt oh, she's gonna hate me. I told the adults, and she wasn't mad, but she was feeling oh, not that I betrayed her, but I told other people. But yeah, so it kind of I wouldn't say it broke the friendship, but it was definitely a tough spot. But looking back, I think I just did what I had to, kind of. I don't know, but yeah. So I think what you said, sometimes it's hard to make the decisions for them, but sometimes I feel it gets to a point when you really should do something, and whether the person likes it or not, you're trying to help. So yeah, it's also hard for the person who's struggling sometimes, that they don't recognize that they need the help. So it is kind of if you're the person looking at it from the outside, it's oh, like they really like I should do something, and like at the end it might not work out like perfectly, but like as long as the person's safe and healthy, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really hard to do. And when you do that, there's that feeling of, should I have? Because now they might be upset with me, they might be angry, or whatever it may be. But I feel as though you would regret it more if you were sitting here today and you thought, oh, I didn't make that call, and who knows where that friend might have ended up. And so, it's so hard to make those decisions when you don't know if it's something that they can handle or not. And so, being there, that's hard, but
but it's okay. She's healthy. She's safe, and like we still speak. So it's
What was your biggest setback as a youth player, and how did you deal with it?
So growing up playing with boys, it was always a lot of talk, and there were not all supportive people always. So I've heard a lot of rude comments on like, just go back to the kitchen, you're not supposed to be on ice, and stuff like that. And it was just like, okay, guys, we don't need to like tell this to young kids, because I was like 10 or 12. And so that was definitely like the hardest part, kind of feeling.
I wasn't like super young, like 10, but it was like around 12, so not that much older, but it was kind of when I was given the opportunity to start trying out for like USA Hockey development and national camps. And they actually use a letter grading system when the tryouts are done. Like they give you an A, B, C, D, or an F. Like they do this for kids that are in ages from 10 to 15, and which I didn't think much about it, but now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, that's kind of aggressive. You're kind of gonna grade a kid whose hope is to make an Olympic team one day, that you potentially can give them an F that basically says they're a terrible hockey player. And the way USA Hockey worked back then, each district only got a certain amount of kids to move on to the next level based on how popular hockey was in their area. And of course, I was in a very small hockey community area, so we only got 2. And this was my second year trying out, so I was at the next level. And this was the first year, I made it the previous year, but this year we only had 1 spot. And the girl who made it over me, it was just, they were saying it was politics. She just had, at this point, they were just saying that she was just better because she was playing at this prep school. She just had more opportunities. And they made it sound like it was just because it wasn't that she was better, but because she had more opportunities ahead of her. And that they thought she was gonna be a better player in the future. The tryouts, a bunch of girls come from everywhere. And, it was supposed to be this whole panel of esteemed coaches doing the tryouts. And I remember looking up to like where the coaches are supposed to be grading the players. No one was watching. The whole couple hours we were on the ice. And it was like, they knew the team before we even got there. Like no one was watching the tryouts. And it's like why do we even come? And it's like, yes, we're 11, 12 years old, but we're not oblivious to these things. Like we're kids, but this is our lives. Like we're dedicating our livelihood to this sport. Like we want to get better, and making these teams and these camps is how we get better. And yet you're not really watching us. You kind of pre-picked the roster. So like that's kind of the biggest childhood setback that sticks out to me for hockey, was like just realizing that people really weren't giving equal opportunities to everyone because they were just thinking that these people were better because of the opportunities they've had in the past. So like it took me, like I had to like really rely on like my parents and coaches to be like, it's like, this is just what's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen your whole career. Like politics are just a thing that's gonna happen in women's hockey forever and in sports in general. And so like it took me a few days to realize that, but then I kind of just focused or relied more on like getting back to like my training, I guess, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As athletes, we have this, like, I guess we start to identify with our sport so much that that's all we are. And so as a 17-year-old, when all I felt that I was a really great hockey player, and my measurement of what a really great hockey player or an elite hockey player was making and playing for Team Canada. And so when I didn't get that, I kind of, you know, went in this feeling of, if I'm not this unbelievable hockey player, then who am I? And I was so lost that I think, to be honest, I carried it with me for years of play. You know, it was right before I went into university, and I think of how I went into university, and I had a really rough start and overall a pretty bumpy career, and 90% of that was attributed to my confidence, I'd say. Of course, there were other factors, you know, like fitness level, whatever it may be, but I think everything fed into my confidence. The biggest thing that was always my strength was my skating. And I remember opening up my Hockey Canada evaluation, and one of the things that they said was that my skating wasn't at the level that it needed to be. And for me, it was like, oh no, if my skating isn't where it needs to be, then what about the rest of me? Because like, that's my strength. Mm-hmm. So again, having that identity crisis was something that caused me to kind of carry it with me for a long time. And I had to go through a lot of work of unpacking those things. The biggest thing was when I got to Stonehill, so that was probably 4 years later. And I was fortunate enough to have a coach who was also a mental performance coach. And I remember one of the things I said was that I'm slow, you know, like I've just been told so often that I'm slow. I'm not fast enough, like I can't skate well enough, blah, blah, blah. And I remember her asking me the first time, well, when was the first time you heard that you were slow? When was the first time someone told you that? And I sat there and I broke down into tears, and then eventually I said it was Hockey Canada camp. That was the first time that I realized that I was slow. And whether it was, you know, true or not, then I started to hear it more and more often, enough that I believed it. And then it kind of manifested into me playing slow and not trusting my skating and not, whatever it may be, you know, being released from Hockey Canada really shaped who I am as a player and as a person. But if I were to do it all over again, I would hope that I could find a way to not identify with that so much and understand that just because I didn't reach that goal doesn't mean that every other thing I've done doesn't really count anymore. And just finding a way to recreate my confidence because I think that was really the struggle. It wasn't being released from Hockey Canada, it was how it affected my confidence that was the struggle for me. And it's an uphill battle. I still struggle with confidence as a player, as we all do sometimes, but I think remembering how I got through that kind of helps me.
What do you think helped you become a professional hockey player?
Yeah, I guess for me it was, I think it, like my parents pretty much, because they always taught me that it's my choice to do whatever I want. So yeah, like I think that growing up, I always knew like I don't have to worry about what I choose, and they'll just support me with whatever I pick. And I guess like my dad didn't really expect that it would be hockey, but when they saw that I enjoyed so much, they were like, okay, well, this is what you want to do. And then when like I started to like get better and stuff, then he was the one who was like, oh, well, you can go like study in Canada or US, like if you want to. And I was like, yeah. So then I kind of was like, that was my motivation. And I was like, okay, I'm working towards this and I want it. And like you said, I think it was like the willingness to do the extra stuff and just like I guess a very strong like internal motivation that I want to do this.
Yeah.
And like, I guess this is, I don't know if it's same for you guys, but growing up playing boys hockey, I always wanted to prove them wrong, that I can play and I can be better than them sometimes, like to a certain age. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I want to show them that I can do this. So that was kind of my like internal motivation that I'm like, girl power.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like I think to a certain extent, a lot of it is my parents and my family, but and like, yes, they're the ones paying for the summer camps and all the trainings growing up. But at the end of the day, it was my decision and my choice to continue to play. And they were like, yeah, go play whatever sport you want. And at a young age, I was also very invested in soccer. And I had the opportunity, once I was getting to like the high school age, to continue whatever one I wanted. And ultimately what led me to choose hockey was because I loved hockey that much more. And I had that much more desire to achieve more goals with hockey. I wanted to compete more with hockey, and I think there was just more of a willingness inside me to have more dreams with that one sport. And I'm just such a competitive person. I wanted to be the best.
You.
Oh,
Never.
no, really? No, but I just wanted to be the best person I could. When I was in university, like my last year of university, it came a time where I thought about quitting because I just was having such a miserable time, and I was like, I'm not good enough and there's nothing for me to do next. But I was still willing to get on the ice every day, do extra workouts, extra morning ice, extra stuff. So there were still parts of me inside that wanted to accomplish things, and there was still things inside me that wanted to get to the next level. So I knew that my love for the sport wasn't gone. So I knew in order to get to the professional level, all I really needed was my love for the sport. So, and like, I feel like if you're telling a younger person, if you really want to achieve something or get to something of a high level, if you love it and you're willing to put in the work, you can really do it.
For me, I think it would be just knowing that like you don't have to like fit in, because I felt, you know, like not necessarily like to fit in or like not be afraid to be different. I think because like, and I've talked about this so many times, like playing with boys, being the only girl, I was always feeling like, oh, I'm different. But I think we should all like be okay with being different and embrace it and just do our thing and don't worry so much about what other people think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think for me, telling my younger self that everything will work out in the end, and it might not be exactly how you planned it. You know, your A, B, C, D, E is not going to be an exact science. It's not going to be, there's going to be bumps along the road and things are going to happen that are differently. But I think I'm a strong believer that everything happens for a reason, and, you know, you grow from things. And so rather than me sitting there and stressing about what could have been, or is it going to work out? Is it going to happen? I wish that in all those moments, I just sat there and appreciated what was happening.
Yeah.
I wish that I had the gratefulness and just to sit there and enjoy the moment and be in the moment and, like you said, just have fun. And yeah, still to this day, anytime we're out here, I'm thinking about it, you know, just have fun.
Yeah, and I like also feel like with the end of the season, you're kind of thinking like, it's the little things, like always in hockey, like road trips, you know, like when you hang out with the girls in the gym or you go for lvka. So it's just like, yeah, enjoying that and don't worry so much about future.